Hey, beautifuls. It felt time to share with you a little about my journey with InnerCartography and why it has grown into such a deep part of my walk through life. InnerCartography helps me find myself in the structures, illusions, and rubble of life. It reminds me and invites me into a space of seeing my own bullshit and loving it gently and firmly. It reminds me that perspectives can be traps and keys to freedom, depending on how they are used. It regularly reminds me of ways to understand the world that might be a notness of me, and thus harder to accept. There's so many beautiful facets to humanity and life, even amidst the crazy chaos. It reminds me regularly of where and how to orient myself in the storms of life, and where to look for the delight in the dark. It's not a magical cure-all pill, though the choice to play certainly is a red or blue pill option. It's a practice, a praxercise, which is a practice that can be exercised at a crossroads of change. It helps me find my way out of immobilizing darkness and arrive in a space where I can choose action now. It helps me tease apart the strands of dense tensions to feel space between my cells, which allows the light a space to crack through. For example, when I began experimenting with what it meant to be an emotionally undefined being, where I had the opportunity to explore that I had no consistent patterns emotionally, that I was not here for my emotions to give me answers, that my truth is in the now, and that I'm here to be a screen, not a sponge. Phew! That made all the difference for me. I stopped fearing, or slowed down in fearing my emotions, because I was stopping myself from looking for them to give me answers and thinking myself an idiot for not finding them. I was looking down the wrong rabbit hole for what I needed. It did mean catching when an emotion comes up. They can be slippery buggers. And checking it for my lessons or someone else's emotional energy expansion. I start by always asking myself, when I sense those emotions coming up, is there something I can learn here? And sometimes there isn't, and often there is. This is one of the ways that we can invite wisdoms to grow within us, is to ask ourselves these questions. I began making myself reminders and worksheets and charts and posters a while back to help me orient to this life that this skin suit and this soul are riding through, with, on, and inside of. These poignant and physical reminders help me remember when I forget. I intentionally started walking this path of InnerCartography back in 2010, purposefully and on a mission to collect and work with ways to understand myself and the world around me. Human design gave me a simple schematic, like a blueprint, for dancing the realms of the body and the mind by looking at individual and overlapping aspects of seeing larger picture and then in on a pinpoint spot. I had been fed up with lessons and systems that didn't seem to give an inclusionary way of seeing a collective perspective as well as individual nuances, because I'm not just interested in my own healing here, even though it's also about my own. 9 years into my experiment, at the invitation of parts of my community, I started sharing the delves I go on, sharing the lenses from big to small, and then beginning to stack those lenses to create a mental kaleidoscope of being able to see beauty in the pain, choices in chaos, a way through in the dark, and embracing stories that hold us in our bones while we journey with the crones. And do not misunderstand me. This is not the work for the faint of heart. It will upend your world as you see it now. It will challenge everything and solidify other things. And you may find a voice within you that you didn't know you had, abilities beyond your comprehension or even your desire. For me, this is a calling, not a pastime. I do not come at it from a place of fear, because, well, that's part of the illusion, that we have something to fear from fear. I do come at it from a place of deep awareness and choice. Always, beloveds, the sovereign choice. In this case, to show up willing. And that it's not a comfortable ride. And since the experience of life is not a guarantee of a comfortable ride, regardless of what society would tell us and news and media would show us, all that's really being given up is the illusion and the grip that we have on who we have become. Next week, and for the next 3 months, so this is going to be November, December, and January of 2022 into 2023, we start with the delve into and through the human design system together with those that feel the call. Human design is a system that for me is like a blueprint. It's based on a binary, a this or a that, defined, undefined, etc. It's also a system that starts a bridge out of the black and white perspective when the lenses and perspectives get stacked and experimented with in our lived lives. It's like how you can make a sphere out of a circle with a few lines in just the right place, thus giving you a 4-axis spectrum upon which can be reflected in a more nuanced and thus more robust way of having just about any conversation. The next 3 months after that, February, March, and April of 2023, we'll be diving again into the gene keys, an even more robust, especially when played alongside the human design system, way of seeing and feeling our way through spectrums. We're working with shadow, shine, and source, or in the system they call it shadow, gift, and siddhi. Here we start mapping more of a soul's trajectory along with human mechanics. For me, the magic comes when I am looking through the lenses of at least 3 systems from 3 different incidences or experiences, and it can show and I can find at least 3 different choices. And yes, there's magic in the numbers. Conditioning keeps us in binary thinking, feeling, black and white, good or bad, stay or go, give or take. It's time we break out of that mold. And not everyone will agree, and that's all right. If I can leave you with one simple pattern that can be really helpful in moving forward to being able to see, what do I do when I'm in the midst of chaos? Number 1, come to recognize our patterns. Number 2, accept what brought them into being. And number 3, see the choice before you. Shorthand, recognize, accept, choice. Our power lies deeply in that place. A side note on Alchemy of the Seasons, which is where all of these delves come from in the form of classes and courses and modules. All the exchanges that come from these courses 100% go to support Nematon, a New York State nonprofit. We're a human earth sanctuary and a learning community. These exchanges help us get medicines and support to people who need them. And there are always various options for exchange should there be hardship on your end. Please think with a win-win. This is how the nonprofit gets to stay afloat in these times, and we so deeply look forward to journeying with you. If you feel the call, there's always a way. Lots of love, beautifuls. Until next time.